Good evening, Graham.
Good evening, Josh.
How are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I lost your picture there for a second, but
Oh.
we're gonna talk through it. Hey, he's Dog Out West on Twitter. I am Dog_Stats. We are here with our midweek show. We're gonna look at some. We're not gonna dig real deep into a 32-point spread game against Vanderbilt, but we are gonna look at some numbers for the secondary and some stats and PFF grades, and also we're going to have an interview with OddsJam, Alex from OddsJam, who is a killer site that we're partnering with. So if you want to get smarter and bet with positive EV bets, check them out, oddsjam.com, and you're going to hear from Alex here in a little bit. But for now, anything going on in your world before we jump into some stuff, Graham?
No, man, not much. We can get into it, bro.
All right. Well, I just published a story on dogsports.com that sort of kind of talked about the secondary after Jalen Brooks and Josh Vann had a night on Georgia. I think there was a little bit of concern about, hey, maybe that's a weakness we should be paying attention to. But I've got targets and receptions, pass breakups, yards per catch, yards after catch, and the PFF grades for the SEC. And you can see that Dawgs are first in that PFF grade of 91.9. Super low targets, the lowest receptions, one of the lowest receptions in all of football. That 18.7 yards per catch, that's a little deceiving because that's just the guys, just the secondary. So, yeah, some of those big plays are coming out, but it's, as you can see, just a handful of receptions at 22 per in 3 games. So, yeah, that yards per catch is a little concerning, but when you break down to it, overall coverage grade by PFF of 91.9. And Graham, we kind of talked about this in our preseason that that front seven was going to be so elite and so strong that it was going to give a lot of it's not going to give a lot of opposing quarterbacks is to have a chance to wind up and throw it deep, and that's what we're seeing. You can see how few targets that our secondary is having to face.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we talked about this from the word go, right? Like when I did my analysis for the Clemson game and there was people out there picking 38-35 or 42-38, it was just like there's no way. Georgia's defensive line is too disruptive to really imagine anyone at this point that's on the schedule like sitting back there in the pocket and just picking that secondary apart all day. I think the other thing too is that we've underrated the secondary, at least from a preseason prediction standpoint. Like Latavius Brinney, 85.4 cover grade so far. Amir Speed, I know, struggled a little bit the other night, but he's been very solid on the whole. Keely Ringo looks like he's really kind of moving into that DB2 role opposite of Kendrick. And then we still have yet to see Tyke Smith on the field. That guy was the number one slot defender in the country last year. So Georgia's going to continue to play with some of those lineups and some of those rotations, but on the whole, I don't think you have anything to be worried about in the secondary if you're a Georgia fan.
Yeah, I'm going to show some of these plays that the South Carolina receivers had on us, but I'm also going to show a lot of really great plays. Anthony Tresh had a stat that Kelly Ringo is one of the few DBs that have yet to give up a catch in pass coverage. You can see that they had zero catches, that little graph I just showed. So for his just 3 games into his playing career, he's showing that why he's a 5-star. And our top 3 DBs and have 80+ PFF grades. When I say the guys with the most snaps in Georgia secondary all have 80+ PFF grades, which is pretty great. And when you get into some of these plays, you can see, it's easy to kind of maybe overestimate. And like you brought it up, you and I were talking that some of those plays towards the end of the game were garbage time when the game was well out of hand.
Right. Yeah. A, they were garbage time. B, I think it's definitely worth remembering that, we talked about it coming into the ball game last week. I kind of expected South Carolina might hit a couple deep shots on Georgia. Josh Vann's a very good receiver, first of all. I think we should give him credit where credit's due. But second of all, the kind of game plan that South Carolina has been running all season, and especially that roll action that we expected to see with Nolan. It's just it's designed to draw guys in, and when you're seeing short passes and tight little runs and stretch kind of runs to the outside where the corners and safeties are responsible for coming in and making tackles, it's easy to let somebody get behind you. I think going forward, I'm sure they'll be coached up on that, and I'm sure they've talked about all that. Ringo is so fast that his recovery speed, like, there's just not many guys out there that even if they do get a couple steps on him, can keep that margin on him. Like, he's going to close unless it's a perfectly thrown ball. Speed, I don't think is quite as quick. Maybe not quite the athlete that Ringo is, so he does need to do a better job with some technique. But I think playing against UAB and the speed of those receivers probably lulled that secondary to sleep a little bit, because they were out there facing guys that they really didn't have to run full speed on to stay in coverage. And then, South Carolina's not great. They're not Spurrier era South Carolina right now, but they still have some dudes, and they're still an SEC football team. And I think that this is why you should be excited if you're a Georgia fan that you have some more challenging games coming up on the schedule, because that's going to be the way these guys get better and get prepared for the Floridas and Alabamas and potential playoff teams of the world.
A note on my story that I published on Dawgs Sports earlier. I had filtered out like cornerbacks and defensive backs and used a grade that gave those players a 71.4. Brent Rollins from UGA-Sports.com and PFF College was kind enough to point out that's not really how you should be using those stats. So I've updated it since it's published, and you can see that the graph we had tonight showed Georgia with a 91.4 coverage grade. That's the entire team. But, also thinking about the entire team, and, we saw that 18 points, whatever, yards per catch. If you dig down a little deeper and look at every single pass from every position, Georgia's like 3.7 yards per attempt. So, they're like we've talked about it. They're elite and performing at an elite level for sure.
Well, right. I mean, like Channing Tindall, what he's doing in coverage as a linebacker with legit 4.4 speed is extremely unique. He's not a guy that it's not a mismatch when he's lined up on a tight end. If anything, it's a mismatch in Georgia's favor. So definitely what's happening, not just in the secondary, but with the linebackers and these edge guys like Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson, when they drop into coverage or pick up a back coming out of the backfield. I mean, there's nothing to worry about with this defense right now. I get that we've watched them play some really good games the first couple weeks, and so seeing a couple long passes get hit last week was showed some kind of regression, I guess, but it's really not regression. Like, it's normal stuff. I'm not worried about it. I don't think anybody really should be worried about it. If we see Vanderbilt, hit 6 deep shots on Saturday or something, then we can start sounding the alarm bells. But I think that Georgia is fine, and those are kind of good things to happen, because they give the coaching staff something to coach these guys up on, and they keep these guys motivated to go out and do a better job next week.
Yeah, and what we talked about, the secondary and linebackers, but to your point, Georgia's and granted, now we're not giving as many snaps on defense because they're so good and getting 3 and outs. But
right.
If you look at only 83 pass attempts, and Georgia's getting 55 pressures and 10 hits on the quarterback with 16 sacks. I'm not sure how I ranked this by, but I ranked it by pressures, and see Georgia's 4th in the league with 55. But again, if you look at, Missouri's getting after quarterback there. Granted, those pressures are, 2 guys get in there, you're counting both those pressures. There's obviously not 73 out of 80 dropbacks or into pressures and stuff. But Georgia is like we talked about, it's a lead up front, and the secondary is it's young and inexperienced, but it's getting every snap and every play. It seems to be getting better. So I'm not worried about the secondary at all. In fact, like you said, Tyke Smith's coming back, and that's a veteran and a guy that's expected to lead back there and be a sort of a captain in the secondary.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So if we're going to pivot into the sort of picks and betting, we're about to have an interview here with Alex from OddsJam. Before to roll into that, is there Anything before when we come back from that, we're going to have our picks of the week. I'm actually going to jump in here and get in on the action too, so be prepared.
So, dog stats.
Yeah.
Rolling the dice, baby. I like it a lot. I'm excited to see some picks from you. So, yeah, no, I think, this is a pre-taped interview, but we talked to Alex earlier today. I talked to Alex earlier today. Really interesting guy, and just what they're doing at OddsJam is very interesting. And you guys, if you're gambling on sports at all, not if you're a professional bettor, not if you're somebody that's betting 15 games a week, if you are betting on college football at all, you need to check out OddsJam, because you will find value. Would you rather bet Georgia this weekend at minus 34.5 and minus 110, or would you rather bet them at minus 34.5 and minus 118? You'd rather bet them at minus 110. So go on OddsJam, figure out what books have the best odds in your favor, and go open up account with that book if it's legal in your state of residence, of course, and go and make your money. So,
all right, here we go. Here comes Alex and Graham talking about OddsJam.
All right, guys, we have Alex from oddsjam.com here joining us on Dog Sports Live. As many of you know. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. So you guys have been kind enough to partner with us and get out the word on the services that you're providing to sports bettors and, not just college football bettors, but any sports gamblers at all out there. And we've been using your platform here on the show, tracking our own bets, and really, really loving what you guys are doing. So tell the people a little bit about what OddsJam is.
Yeah, so I would say the core of OddsJam is real-time odds from as many sports books as possible. Obviously, what makes sports betting really interesting is that these sports books have different odds, right? That's what makes FanDuel unique and different from DraftKings, is the fact that you go to FanDuel, you go to DraftKings, the odds are different. So as a sports bettor, you need to be shopping lines. You need to be looking for the best possible odds for any bet you place. Why bet on Georgia minus 1,000 if you can bet them minus 800, right? So right. I would say, kind of that's the basic premise, is the importance of having live data from like sportsbook markets, because this is very different than the stock market in that, all sports books have different odds, and kind of providing a platform for bettors to do that with refreshed feeds that are, kind of comparable to Don Best and pretty close to real time, trying to get people the best information so they can, make more money.
Yeah. Well, that's what we all want to do, right?
That's what we all want to do, right?
Money. Yeah, totally. So, I mean, you guys have bet tracking ability. You also have the ability to track the lines, which, I mean, I've opened some new accounts at different sports books just because of you guys and seeing value out there, right? So, I mean, this is like a beautiful tool for, I think the thing that like not rumor, but like the notion that I want to dispel a little bit is that you have to be like a professional sports bettor or anything like that to use OddsJam, because anyone, even if you're just laying money on a few games a week, it seems like you can really find some extra value out there that is definitely worth the time.
100%. Like, I previously worked in Pennsylvania, so sports betting came to Pennsylvania in like 2018, late 2018. I was in New Jersey a bit before. I worked on Wall Street, so I was very into like gambling, period, and trying to make money.
Right.
Gambling, right? Like gambling in the stock market, gambling in sports betting, whatever. So I would say, like, I never did it full time. I don't even think sports betting full time is a legitimate or attractive profession. I don't think. I mean, like, we talk a little bit on OddsJam just about like bookmaker limits, and like it's more meant as a side hustle that hopefully can be lucrative for you. But I absolutely don't think this is a professional thing. I don't think you need to be a pro to kind of find some value in sportsbook odds. I think it's something that, just takes a little bit of time to learn. And from there, you can start making money and having more fun sports betting because, you're making money.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys have some tools on there that go a little bit deeper. You have the free tools like the bet tracker and some of that stuff, but you guys also have some premium tools like some arbitrage kind of trackers and looking at some of those opportunities. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So I would say what makes OddsJam a more interesting product than a lot of companies that have odds on their site, aside from the fact that we have a very comprehensive array of markets and we have props, stuff like that, is that we build functionality on top of the data, right? Like, I mean, you use DraftKings. Like, if you go to DraftKings, you're going to see a site with 50,000, frickin' odds every time you look at it. And these odds are constantly moving, right? Sports is like the stock market. Durant gets injured, the odds start to move, and like things can move quick, right? Things can move pretty quick. So in sports betting, it's important to have real-time information, but you also need to like see the value in the data. So at OddsJam, we're not trying to just be a ton of data, millions of odds that are on our site, and just you sort through it and you find your betting opportunities. We try to highlight some value, and we do that through the plus EV functionality. So like whatever, maybe, next week the Colts are plus 200 everywhere, and you can get plus 230 on Ballybet or whatever it's called, that new book in Colorado. It's like maybe there's some value on Colts plus 230. Is the value comes in when you can sift through the data and the vast array of odds on these sports books and actually find some value. So that's what our premium features try to do, from plus EV betting to middles to arbitrage, is really just level the playing field. And it's not only people who can write their own, whatever, like data models or whatever, like can find good line discrepancies. It's kind of now anyone can, right?
Right. Totally, man. And I mean, like that used to be something that was nearly impossible for just kind of the everyday person that's working a regular 9 to 5, just because it takes a ton of time to shop those lines. And so having it there, I mean, I think one thing I would personally say is I see lines open and I want to jump on them early before they get sharp and they move, and being able to go on OddsJam and seeing which books have the lines up early, and where I can go ahead and get action on a Sunday or a Monday for the next college football Saturday is a huge advantage. And sometimes it's
100%.
I mean, especially on over unders. I mean, sometimes it's as much as a 5 to 7 point advantage if I'm able to get that in on.
Especially in college football. I mean, college football, you get some big line moves. And I mean, NFL you do too, but obviously NFL, there are less games, first of all. Like college football, if you think of like, I don't know, like some of these teams that you probably have, or at least I haven't heard of.
Sure.
And like their QB gets injured, you'll see like total points markets move by like, 7, 10 sometimes. And those are huge moves. And, like you're not going to spot that unless you have data. So that's really what at the core, like the power of OddsJam is you kind of want to know when things are starting to move, and you can do your own research on why they're moving and determine if you want to place a bet or not. But as you mentioned, like there are some pretty big discrepancies in college football for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall and Appalachian State play tomorrow, Thursday night. Kind of a trash game, right? But I'm a college football junkie, so I'll watch trash games. But that over under opened at 55.5, and I bet it there. And now it's 60.5. So
that worked out.
I mean, yeah, that worked out well, right? So I think those are the types of things that anybody can really use. Before I let you go, you mentioned middles, and for people that are unfamiliar with that term, explain it, because it's kind of like a really interesting thing.
Yeah, I would say like when people get their feet wet in gambling, right? If some people have bet on sports since they can remember, played poker or whatever, like gambled in some fashion. I would say middles are very interesting, because if you're betting like over 45 points, under, 48 points, you have this rare window of opportunity where if the game goes over 45 but under 48, you can win both bets. So you're kind of like hedging your bet, right? It's kind of like taking the Texans point spread but taking the Packers money line, or like whatever. Like I think yesterday the Lions were 11.5 point dogs. So maybe you want to bet the line spread but the Packers money line. You're essentially middling where the game's going to end. And it's a lower risk strategy than maybe outright betting. But obviously, you still have the exposure to the game where it's not direct arbitrage, where you're making risk-free money, and you still get to enjoy watching the game, right?
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I mean, especially with live odds as well, there's a lot of middle opportunities in game sometimes.
We just added live odds to OddsJam, actually.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's huge. That's a big really opportunity.
Cool.
Nice.
It's really cool. So,
well, anything else you want to tell us about the site before we let you get back to it?
Not at all. I appreciate you having me, and you know, any questions about OddsJam, people can ask you.
There you go. Yeah, totally. Well, you guys can find Alex at OddsJam on Twitter, and obviously oddsjam.com is the website. And if you are betting any amount of money at all on sports, you need to be looking at OddsJam regularly and looking at some of their premium features and subscribing, because the return on that investment for the subscription will be substantial. So thanks for coming on, Alex, and thanks for what you guys do.
Yep, I'll see you.
All right, there it is, man. Good interview, dude. I learned a lot. I mean, you know why I'm doing this. I like the numbers and, you know, the kind of betting and the way he's approaching those and what he's providing on the website is just right up my alley. So I know that you're totally into that site, and I am super impressed with the tools and what you can glean off of just joining up and maybe clicking and seeing what they can do for your, your weekend sports betting.
Yeah, man, 100%. I mean, you know, we're about to get into some picks here, but before I kind of, entered my final picks onto the sheet for the show, I was definitely on there shopping lines, looking for an edge. There were some games where, there's a lot of books out there that will let you bet alternate spreads. And so if you feel comfortable, I feel very strongly about LSU and Mississippi State this weekend. So I bumped that spread to LSU at -4.5, and I'm getting plus 144 return on my money there. So there's some of these games out there that, depending on what your read of things is, you can go out there and find an edge. Baylor, I bumped up to plus 7.5 versus Iowa State and knocked that down to -118. But to get that half point over a touchdown, I think is great value to give up -118 instead of -110. So there's a lot you can do with OddsJam to really tailor your bets where you want them to be. And, that's the beauty of it.
All right. Well, let's start it off. So you just told us you took Baylor plus 6.5. Is that right?
Plus 7.5.
Plus 7. Have you bought it up? Okay. Well, I've got you at plus 7.5. So I like that bet a lot. It's pretty competitive from a team composite standing, and the net yards per play favors Baylor, which is one of my favorite stats. I think Iowa State, I think a lot of people favoring them are looking at their priors from last year, and I just don't think they're playing quite as good as they did last year.
I agree. I think Baylor, this game opened more like 3.5 or 4.5, and people, obviously have heard a lot of Iowa State hype in the offseason, so that line got bet up pretty quick, and I'm going against the public on it because I'm with you. I think the metrics kind of favor the Bears on this one, and like you said, there's not a big talent discrepancy. LSU, Mississippi State, I know you're going to hate this pick.
I don't hate it at all. That's a lot of talent. No, I don't. I mean, I think my numbers have probably had me taking Mississippi State, but I think LSU is going to have 2 or 3 games where they play to their how well they can play, and this might be one of those games.
Yeah, I think looking back,
and you bet it down. I like it. I mean, the difference between 3 is, that 3 is a key number, but if you believe strongly in it and you want to take it down, it's for more value, like you said, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally, man. That's more like money line value that I'm getting, and I'm only giving up an extra 1.5. So I like it. I think LSU, that game against Mississippi State, has been kind of a joke for the last year. Everyone talking about how crazy they were to try and defend Mississippi State and man-to-man. So I'm sure we'll see them in the traditional type of zone defense that you see teams play against the air raid that have success against air raid offenses. I just think there's enough talent on that LSU team to make a few more plays. And Mississippi State coming off that Memphis loss, I'm sure they'll be motivated. They're at home, but it is a 11 a.m. Central Time game, so I like that for LSU, not having to play at night in Starkville. Feel good about it.
I'm going to go to one of my picks that I know that you and I both agree on, and that is, did you take Michigan State, or is that just me?
I didn't go with Michigan State this week. Last week I did, but
Okay. All right. Well, this is one of my picks. I've got Michigan State -4. It is at home. Nebraska is talent composite wise, an inferior team. Michigan State's putting up 7.8 yards per play on offense and a 53% success rate. And that defense for Nebraska is pretty suspect, giving up 5 yards per play. I've got this as, I mean, if I were one of these talking head types, I guess I am a talking head. Lock of the week.
Really? Stone cold Josh Locke. Honestly, to be 100% truthful with you, I was planning on picking this game, and Michigan State was obviously very good to me last week. They covered against Miami, so by a wide margin. I just feel like this Nebraska team is better than we thought. I think that holding Oklahoma to as many points as they did last week, I was pretty impressed with. They do continue to shoot themselves in the foot on offense and do stupid stuff like giving up a blocked extra point for a safety. So you're probably on the right side here, but I just feel like, Nebraska's playing hard and they're playing pretty good. And at some point, maybe one of these is going to fall in their favor, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I think that success rate of 44% is pretty pedestrian, and I think Michigan State at home is going to have continue to play well on offense. Okay, this is the game I was trying to queue up because I know we're on the same side. It is I screwed that up. Hang on, stay with me. Do that, and let's do this. It's going to do the UK Kentucky game. Kentucky at South Carolina. This is another one I feel pretty strongly about. Kentucky's on the road, only favored by 5.5, but Kentucky is, on my little metrics and adjusted yards per play, is one of the top 10 teams in the country. They have, like we've said a few times, that offense is different than we've seen in the past. And their gross net yards per play is 3.2, and South Carolina is just not good enough on offense and not good enough on defense to keep up with this offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kentucky probably, even though that passing game has matured and they look more explosive, I still think the strength of that team is the offensive line and, what they do with Chris Rodriguez at running back. I've been impressed with since last year. I think he was probably one of the most underrated players in the conference last year. And, I do think that South Carolina has some talent up front, especially on the edge. And we talked about that last week with Jordan Birch, but I just think that Kentucky will kind of pound them out, wear them down. And I think that I just don't see, we know that Josh Vann exists, obviously, but if anything, I feel like it hurt South Carolina, some of that stuff they put on tape against Georgia last week, because Kentucky will probably be ready for him in the secondary. And I feel like this is kind of one of those rivalry games that I know it's on the road and they're playing at South Carolina, but I think Kentucky is just substantially better than South Carolina. I think they're, a much better football team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that talent composite. I mean, actually, South Carolina has them a little bit, but when you're talking about a quarterback issues that they're having at South Carolina, I just think that negates pretty much everything talent-wise you've got, and that Kentucky offensive line is one of the best in the league for sure, if not one in the country. Michigan, Rutgers. This is one I missed when you showed me your picks. I was like, yeah, that's one I liked a lot too.
Yeah, Michigan going out, playing Butgers at home. I think, minus 19 is not a lot. Rutgers has had a good start to the season, right? Like they have, but looking at the net yard per play discrepancy there, it's pretty substantial in Michigan's favor. It's one of the biggest, actually, of the entire week. I bet against Michigan last week with Northern Illinois because I thought Northern Illinois could score with them, and I thought that Northern Illinois' defense was like just good enough to hang in there, and they got beat by nearly 60 points. So I think that Jim Harbaugh actually kind of has his shit together this year, man, and I feel like we shouldn't question it. I've avoided betting on Michigan for a couple of years now, but I think that Rutgers is going to struggle to score points, and I think Michigan's offense is probably better than anyone really realizes yet.
I agree. I've got UNC minus 12. I don't know if that line's still out there. This is what I got it at early.
I got it at 12.
You got it at 12.
I'm on the same boat with you on that one.
Everyone was kind of like making fun of Carolina after they lost the first game of the season at Virginia Tech, but they are putting up big numbers there, and that offense is going to start clicking, and they've replaced a lot, but every game they're going to get better, and their offense is quite frankly one of the better ones in the country, if not one elite enough with some defense that could compete in the ACC for a title. 8.2 yards per play on that offense at over 50% success rate. Georgia Tech's having a really good defensive start to the year. They obviously held Clemson down, but I just think that Carolina is going to kind of roll this game. And I just think they're too good at 12. And like you say, 12 is an easy cover with 2 touchdowns. And I just don't see Georgia Tech even having a chance to backdoor cover with only a 40% success rate on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, Sam Howell last week was 14 for 21, 307 yards, 5 touchdowns and a pick. But Josh Downs is a freshman wide receiver for them, and he really wasn't on the field much in that Virginia Tech game. And him and Howell look really good together right now. He had 8 catches for 203 yards, 2 touchdowns last week, averaged 25 yards a catch. So I like that combination. I feel like we talk all the time about returning wide receiver production, especially in the early season. And we saw that bite Carolina, I think, and especially that with some poor O-line play, I think cost them that Virginia Tech game. But you're seeing those skill players find a groove. You're seeing Howell find a groove. I also think that Georgia Tech, that game last week for them was one of those kind of where it felt like, if not now, when is this ever going to happen? And it was a long day. I mean, they had the lightning delay. They were in the stadium for hours and hours and hours. So I feel like they'll probably be a little bit hungover from that. And regardless, even if they weren't, UNC is just that much better.
All right. You're taking Syracuse and the money line with everyone's darling Liberty.
I am. Do you like it?
I like this pick a lot. Syracuse keeps showing up in my little net adjusted yards per play metric. Giving up a stout 3.6 yards per play allowed on defense and a sub 40 success rate and a negative EPA. And my little net adjusted yards per play shows this is a 0.8 favor in Syracuse. So getting points. And it's at home dog. I like this pick a lot.
I love home dogs. Yeah. Syracuse, they put up 62 last week against an FCS school. They only put up 7 on Rutgers. That scares me a little bit, but I think that Rutgers defense is probably better than what Liberty fields in their level of football. I think that Syracuse is probably a little bit slept on right now, and they've had some bad turnover luck that I'm hoping they'll kind of turn around. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I feel really strongly about the +6, but I am sprinkling a little bit on the money line there because I think there's upset potential.
You've got another money line coming up. Arkansas, you're just continuing your hate on Texas A&M.
I don't hate Texas A&M. I mean,
we just got we got some good dudes in the comments. We
do.
Fun.
Yeah. Shout out to the Texas A&M fans that are still angry. I didn't think Zach Calzada should be a preseason All-American. I think that Arkansas is good enough on the line of scrimmage to go toe-to-toe with Texas A&M. Texas A&M has had O-line problems so far this year. You saw Colorado hold them to 10 points before giving up 31 or 34 to Minnesota last week. I know that, they had to scrap their plan in the middle of that game and bring in a backup quarterback because Haynes King got hurt. But I'm just not that impressed by the fact that Texas A&M blew out New Mexico last week. I don't think that tells me anything. And I think that Arkansas, is a more known commodity at this point than Texas A&M after what they did to Texas. So I like Arkansas to go in there and play that tough line of scrimmage football, get out of there with a win, and set up a really big game in Athens next week.
Yeah, both of these defenses are playing really well. And my little metric has it over Arkansas favorites. So I like this pick, and money line's bold, but I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Well, the majority of my dollars are going to be on the points, but I am sprinkling a little on the money line because I feel like this is the type of game that maybe, I feel like whoever wins it is probably going to win it by like 7-10. Yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a low scoring affair. That under 47 is kind of a little. It's right on the edge of where I think that could be, but I do think it's gonna be fairly close defensive battle. I jumped on Purdue -11. I don't think Illinois is any good. I think they had a great start to the year in week 0, but since then they've been pretty bad. Purdue had they were hanging with Notre Dame. They just couldn't get over the edge and get over the top there at the end. And I like this play a lot. Looking at the net yards per play for Illinois at -1.6, and I think Purdue can just kind of grind this game down and get it out with a 2-touchdown victory.
Yeah, I almost bet Illinois on this one. Truthfully, David Bell for Purdue is hurt out, and he's their best kind of playmaking threat at wide receiver. Illinois has kind of been hard luck. I mean, they beat Nebraska with a backup quarterback, and Nebraska's not maybe as bad as we thought, but week 1 is week 1. And then now you've got those guys. They should have beat Maryland last week, and I think Maryland's actually pretty good. I mean, baby Tua Talia, the youngest Tagovailoa child, is like playing very, very good for them at quarterback right now. So I don't like this pick, to be honest with you.
All right. Well,
we'll see.
We will see. I like Maryland, the sleeper. They got a tough schedule coming up. We talked about them in the preseason win total 5.5. They're at 3. They got Kent State this week. So they got to squeak out 2 more wins to cover that one. So we're going on.
3.
All right.
Yeah. No, I just meant, keep going, Maryland. Keep
going.
Yeah.
Normally I'm the one speeding this up. All right.
No, you're good.
Let me see. Do we have Boise State, Utah State at Boise? You like Utah State in the points?
I do, and I like the over in this game as well.
High scoring game.
Yeah, over of 63. Blake Anderson is our boy. #wear pink for Wendy from his time at Arkansas State. So always a fan of theirs. But I just think he's a G5 coach that understands how G5 works, how to, really just what is necessary at that level as a coach and a player manager and developer and program developer. I think he's done a good job out there. Utah State, was awful last year with Gary Anderson. It's a good job. They've had some good teams with Jordan Love in the past. I think that Boise is, we're seeing them hit the skids a little bit. It wouldn't shock me entirely to see Utah State, come very close to winning this game, to see this be like a last-second field goal one way or the other or something like that.
All right, our last pick of the night is I've got Kansas State plus the points at Oklahoma State. I watched that Boise State-Oklahoma State game. Wasn't really impressive on offense. And Kansas State was actually getting points at home versus Nevada, and they went up to an early lead and held on and won and covered. As you can see, my net yards per play raw is got Kansas State at 1.8, and Oklahoma State has not really clicked it together too much on the offensive side of the ball. So I like pick. Yeah, I like this. I like Kansas State in this game.
I like it. I'm a fan. Yeah. The other pick I have is obviously Georgia minus.
Oh, I didn't even put that in there. My bad.
No, you're good. Yeah, that's another one that I decided to lay a little more to basically give up a point for some extra juice there. So I got that minus 35.5 at plus 105. I just think that Georgia can basically name their score on Saturday.
Yeah, I like Georgia to cover too. It's a lot of points, but I wonder if
Vandy's really bad.
Yeah, Vandy's not good. And I wonder if there's going to be any hangover or any paybacks from kind of some of those guys not getting senior day next year, if there's any of that sort of rallying point.
I think that Georgia will come out kind of pissed off and prepared. And I think this is the type of game where JT Daniels might only play for a half. I think we may actually finally get to see Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift throw a football. I think it's possible it gets that deep on Saturday. But because of what you mentioned and Vandy skirting COVID last year to kind of avoid having to play that game, I do think this, Kirby's never been one to run up the score in his time in Athens, but I think this may be one where we don't see. Yeah, I think it gets out of hand, and I don't think he's going to run any like double reverse pass up 40 in the fourth quarter or anything like that. But I think we may see him keep the offense running a little more open than usual, and try and get some reps for some of these younger guys. The reality, man, is like at this day and age of college football with the transfer rule being done, you've got to let these guys play when they have a chance to play. These kids are all 4 and 5 stars. They want to play, and when they get in the game, you got to let them, run something resembling your normal offense, and A, give them an opportunity to show what they can do, but B, just keep them entertained and happy and feeling good and, having something to be excited about. So I think that Saturday we finally see Kendall Milton score his first touchdown as a Georgia Bulldog. He is yet to have a touchdown, which is kind of odd when you think about the contributions he's had over the last year plus. But it's going to be interesting just really to see how bad Georgia beats them. I mean, looking at Vanderbilt, like, dude, Ken Seals is still there as their quarterback. His passing grade on PFF is a 42. Like JT's is like an 89 right now for reference. When he is under pressure, that drops to a 27.8, and he is going to be under pressure a lot. So far on the year, he's got 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think he throws probably at least another 2 on Saturday. There's just nothing that Vanderbilt can do in this game offensively to score points. And I don't know how they will. On defense, watching back that Stanford game a little bit, they do load the box up. They, will bring 8 or 9 guys up to the line of scrimmage. I don't know if they just did that because they were playing Stanford or if that's something that we'll see some of on Saturday. Like everyone that's played Georgia so far, my guess is they will try to stop Georgia from just running all over them. And I don't know if they'll be able to or not, but I can tell you if they bring 8 guys up to the box, then you can expect Bowers and Mitchell and Burton and maybe Darnell Washington is back. Maybe we see him get some reps and get right. Maybe we see Tyke Smith get into the game and get healthy before Arkansas comes to town. So I expect this to be a fun day for Georgia. I expect this game to be over at halftime. I think, though, that you'll see some more explosive plays from the Bulldogs, and I also think that this is going to be the week that we see some changes on the starting offensive line. And I'm not sure exactly how that's going to shake out. I've heard whispers of Devin Willock maybe coming in and getting the spot at guard. From some of Kirby's press conference quotes this week, it sounds like he's not super keen maybe on – he feels like that Jamari's been playing better at tackle than he has been at guard in practice. So I don't know if we'll see Broderick slide into that left tackle spot and Sawyer move over, or if we'll see Sawyer stay there and some other guys kind of slide in to the guard positions. But yeah, Georgia, big. Oh, last thing I'll say, Vanderbilt on the year so far, the only place they've really had rushing success is off the right edge. On the right edge, they're 17 carries for 170 yards, 6.3 yards an attempt. Off of right tackle, they're 16 carries, 117 yards, 7 yards for an attempt. Everywhere else, it's 3.9 yards per an attempt or less. So that'll be interesting to watch. That right edge is usually where Travon Walker and Jalen Carter and Adam Anderson kind of hang out. So
it's a murderer's row.
Yeah, good luck to the Vanderbilt Commodores on that plan, if that is their plan. But yeah, I mean, we talked about this. We talked about whether or not we should do film study for Vanderbilt. Look, guys, there's just nothing there to really analyze. Arkansas game next week, we'll have plenty of tape, plenty of analysis, but just enjoy a big ass Georgia win on Saturday. It'll be stress free. It'll be over early. It's a noon game. You can hang out, enjoy the rest of the day's games, maybe get a little action, little sports wagering happening, and have a nice time with the family or friends or wherever it is you like to watch Georgia football.
Absolutely. With that, go Dogs. Thank you to Alex from OddsJam and oddsjam.com. Follow him on Twitter. Follow Graham Coffee at Dog Out West. I am dog_stats on the Twitter. We're both on dogsports.com. Yeah, FTMF stuff's in stock on the website. I've got Chris Smith commemorative Georgia Clemson stickers, bumper stickers.
CS29.
Yeah, exactly. So check it out, dogstats.com. And I've been shipping hats and stickers this week. So we appreciate
FTMF Industries.
FTMF Industries. All right, with that, go Dogs, and enjoy the game, and we'll see you this weekend.
Prestige worldwide, wide.